where is Procore with large language models and AI right now?
We are all in, is all I can say. So we announced our co-pilot strategy at around break in 2023. Last year, 2024, we announced agents. Before that, we were doing, we're working a lot on the data strategy and how do we set up our customers, give them all the tools to get their data and standardize their processes. But that has literally gone on steroids once AI came on, especially LLMs.
Can you just help us understand the definition of agent as well, simply put for our audience?
Sure.
And for me.
So AI agents, are autonomous systems, right, that have capability to do complex reasoning. They have memory, so they remember what came before, what happened, and then they're also able to then execute tasks. And they're all powered by LLMs.
Do you see that technology facilitating the growth of agents is way faster than perhaps technology facilitating the data capture for then the agents to use it? Or am I incorrect saying that?
The same technology that actually helps agents also can help with the data capture, right? So what LLMs are really good at is working with the written word, spoken word. If you think about the data in construction, about 90% of the data in construction is unstructured. You have documents, you have drawings, you have photos, you have videos, and all of the messaging, the transcripts from your meetings, your emails, all of that prior to LLMs, you had to convert them. You have to use natural language processing and entity recognition to kind of create those entities. And so obviously you couldn't do with everything. You just did with the most important things that you needed. But now with LLMs can understand all this unstructured data, and then you can use those to create, not just power the actions, but also create the data required. And the other advantage of agents when they're doing the work is they can also document everything, document why the decisions were done as a part of getting the job done.
What's your views on that, and what can be done and is being done about data infrastructure within the industry?
Yeah, that is it's a real problem and a valid problem to be thinking about. So AI is great, and most LLMs are built on all of the knowledge in the universe, right? On the internet that's available to the models. But if you're looking for a very specific vertical of construction and you're looking for those efficiencies you can gain and advantages of taking how your company does things and turning that into AI, you need to make sure that your company process is documented well, the data is right.
So, how many people in the team working on AI within Procore?
We have about 150 people. And this is both between data and AI. Mostly engineers, product and design, but the majority of it is engineers.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
This episode is brought to you by Build Vision, transforming construction supply chain by bringing contractors,
manufacturers, and stakeholders onto a single software platform. Visit buildvision.io to find out more.
Hey, good afternoon, Rajitha. Thank you for joining us. So you're the VP of Product, Data, and AI at Procore.
That's correct.
Cool. So what does it take? What does it mean? What does it take to be the I won't say the title again because it's quite long, but yeah, could you just tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of experience with building data and AI products and systems, which I've done throughout my career. Understanding that data is foundational, and without data, there's really no AI. So I spend most of my time just creating a vision and strategy for data and AI here at Procore that solves construction industry problems. And then, once we have that vision, then trying to figure out what are the things we need to do, what goals and metrics do we want to track, and then that tie into Procore's longer term strategy and goals. And all of this is done actually in very close collaboration with our customers on a daily basis. I'm either evangelizing what we're doing, or getting a better understanding of what problems we're solving, and is this the right lens to be looking at the problems, and then iterating them, right? Yes, we know a problem, we come away with, we think a potential solution might work, but we have to actually go through that iteration before we can see that it's really done well. And then I also have a strong product team. They're leaders and managers who do this at different elevations. And then we partner obviously with engineering and design to make it a reality.
So, Rajitha, tell us, where is Procore with large language models and AI right now?
We're all in, is all I can say. So we announced our co-pilot strategy at around break in 2023. Last year, 2024, we announced agents. Before that, we were doing, we're working a lot on the data strategy and how do we set up our customers, give them all the tools to get their data and standardize their processes. But that has literally gone on steroids once AI came on, especially LLMs, right? Till then, our customers they understood the power of data, but then it's something hard to tackle. Certain companies were having more success. The rest of them are like, I don't know why I've had traditionally a lot of success with, doing construction the way I do it. But then when LLMs came on board, they really started to see the power of it, right? And part of it is because before that, to do AI, you didn't build or use AI, you needed a graduate degree. So it was something that's out there. They couldn't really see how it would help them or how they would deploy. Most AI systems were like a black box. So there was a lot of skepticism, and I don't know if this is actually right. I don't know what goes into it, right? So all of those kind of, I think, held back a little bit, the folks to adopt it. But with LLMs, it's so easy. Everyone can go on ChatGPT. Everyone can go on Claude or, Gemini and start to play with it and use it in their day-to-day. And once you use it in the day-to-day, it's not that much of a stretch to say, oh, let me use it at work for the simpler ones, right? And then you're like, oh, all these cool things. I can build this. I can see where this could go. And I think that's where the inflection point came, where people understood as oh, it's not something out there. It's actually here today, and it can really improve our lives, even in construction. So I think that's really where it is. And we've been riding that wave, right? When LLMs came on board, we were all obviously eager. My team and I, we're all technologists. We want to jump in and do stuff, but we were like, okay, let's see what problems we can solve. So we did that internally, and then we started hearing from our customers saying, why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? And it's like, this is great, right? The best, when you are in the right spot, when you're getting it both internal and you're getting it from customers telling us what we should be doing. So that's how our strategy came about. We started putting these two together, and we said, hey, let's start with Copilot, primarily solving the problem of information retrieval. On average, we did a survey a couple of years ago, and we heard 20% of time on a project is just spent looking for information. we said, that's a great problem to solve. Let's go after that. And how can we solve that problem? And then once you look for the information, then it's like, then what? Like, what do you do? And that's where, the actions and the agents come into play.
Very good. We will get into some more on the Procore product side, but I think to open the conversation up, maybe we could talk more generally about AI, specifically within construction, and then we will do full loop and come back to Procore's AI strategy and execution. So, yeah, what developments within AI and specifically within construction excite you the most?
AI, like I just said, LLMs, and then the possibilities that open up. Agents is another one, right? If you follow the traction going from...
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Information retrieval that LLMs are really good for. Actually, let me step back a little bit. I think overall, construction is very much a person to person, like a people business. Folks talk to each other and get information. Everything is very personal. And interaction with the system in between the person is a little awkward, right? You do the work, you to people, you do the work, and then you have to come back and document what you're doing. That kind of it's on the side. It's not in the core of how you're doing the business. And I think that leads for some of that awkwardness with the data strategy, like what's important, how much time do I spend actually putting stuff into the system versus how much time do I actually spend doing the work. So what LLMs really unlock for construction is kind of bringing AI in the process of doing the construction process, right? Like you take away the system and you make it another person. Like you ask questions, you talk to, you take photos, and you're showing photos, like all of that, LLM can streamline. So instead of just when you're talking to someone, you can also put it into the system by just talking to the system. You want questions, instead of asking the person, you can ask the system. So that kind of fills that gap of a person. And that really, I think, will implement, like make the adoption much easier.
You mentioned agents. What is exciting about the agents in construction, and how do you see them like evolving?
Can you just like help us understand the definition of agent as well, like simply put for our audience?
Sure.
And for me.
So AI agents, are autonomous systems, right, that have capability to do complex reasoning. They have memory, so they remember what came before, what happened, and then they're also able to then execute tasks. And they're all powered by LLMs. Before that, I think the prior version of this was the RPA, or robotic process automation, but those just did what you asked them to do. They didn't learn from the data. They didn't learn in real time. And what agents can do now is you can train them to do certain things. You can set them up to do certain things, but then they learn based on the environment and adapt accordingly. So I think that's really the crux of agents and why agents are exciting.
Very good. So it's almost like someone will be adopting an assistant, maybe, to do the work with them.
For sure. What agents can do is they can automate any tedious process, especially that's repetitive in construction. Most I hear is like workflows, right? We're trying to do submittals. We just want to make sure we're getting the right submittal. The submittal document has everything that the specifications asked for. And then we want to make sure once the submittals are there, like everyone gets them, or any changes that happen to submittal, everyone gets them, sees them, and acknowledges them. That's a lot of calling, emailing, messaging, making sure they got it, reviewing documents and comparing documents. That's great. A person can do it. but a system can do it much faster. An agent can do it much faster. What people can then do to add value is look at what these agents surface and then make the critical decision of, is this worthwhile to reject? Is the difference significant enough that we reject? And then what are the downstream impacts of some of these changes? And then that's what a person can do. So really it's elevating a person from doing these tedious jobs to critical jobs. That way, if you think about productivity, you can get more, the same people working on more projects and gaining knowledge rather than spending their time just making sure all of the boxes are checked in the workflow.
So you are in this unique position, like probably we'll find out, I hope, working on the agents within the Procore and in the space. And how do you see them evolving in the future? Like what will they be capable of doing in, let's say, 5 years from now?
Yeah, so today we're thinking agents, the way we are envisioning agents is doing a single purpose task, right? For example, reviewing a submittal, creating an RFI, updating schedules. And then fast forward, once we have all these agents deployed and folks using them, then you can start to chain these agents together. So you still have the person in the loop, they're still reviewing, but then it should seamlessly kick off from one task to the other. The agents will learn and understand what a typical process is from start to finish, and then start to, as soon as one agent is done, then invoke the next one. And to the point of like, do Procore do all of these agents? Are different companies doing different capabilities of agents? They can start to talk to other agents outside, right? In the ecosystem, if you're a company that uses, 10, 15, 20 pieces of technology, and all of those technologies have agents, they can start to talk to each other. It's not confined to one technology platform. There's this term called multi-agent network. Like you can take different agents and talk to each other, and that's how things can get done. So what you're really looking at, the future of software as a service is really going to be agent-driven and conversational-driven, rather than, you still need to do integrations. You still need to have APIs, obviously, for every agent to talk to each other. But it'll be much more seamless. People don't have to figure out, where is my information? How do I get this done? Yeah, as long as the infrastructure is set up in such a way, the agents then can take those tasks and then speak to other agents and execute. I think that's the future we're looking at.
Okay.
Could you give us could you give us like an example of you can relate to how Procore maybe will be using agents. Like maybe I can think of something just to give you an idea of the answer that maybe we're looking for. But say in construction you have like an RFI, an agent could perhaps review the design information, raise the RFI, and then the agent that's working on behalf of the responder of the RFI would be able to answer that information, answer the RFI for the person that's asking the RFI. Oh my goodness, I feel like I really overcomplicate that question. But hopefully it makes sense.
That's not complicated at all. I think what you're saying is you have a design doc, you have a specifications, you want to know what is covered and what is not, and the gaps in the information. And if there's gaps, then you use an RFI agent can create an RFI, right? And then send it off to the party that should be answering, and they can have agents on their part that they can look into their repository of information. And if it's not created already, like look in the history and see, how do we want to try, usually answer these kind of questions and answer them. If not, then flag it to the person and say, hey, this is a new problem. How would you like to answer it? Right? But all of that grunt work of seeing if it's done before, all of that is done. And now this person who's answering only have to focus on the really important ones. And in certain cases, if you even play that forward, the agent can also ask, does this have any impact on cost to schedule, which is the next one? So it can, you can see how these work. So they can be one agent, or they can be multiple agents, like that's getting triggered after one is done. So thinking about the next step.
Wow, you could go very deep with that.
Yeah.
Any other
So
any examples like that?
Schedule is another one, right? You have an RFI, you got the RFI, you have a cost impact. You also know, you know, you want to understand how it would impact your schedule. You look at how the submittal should change, and then the agent can recommend alternate options for submittals, like materials, and then you can start to look at that material. What is the cost of the material, right? You can get to the cost. Then you're thinking about, oh, what is the typical, um, lead times for these to get these materials? And then fast forward, can you get it in the time that you need to start this task in the schedule? If not, you're getting that alert way ahead, right? You're not waiting till the task is started, but you're getting it right at the planning stage. And think of how much more efficient you could be if you can take all of those into considerations at that stage. And then sometimes, as you go through the project stage, things change and being alerted proactively as things are changing. And then again, giving the project team that time and space to iterate and revisit those decisions and figure out, again, optimize those decisions to hit those dates and hit those cost constraints. It just opens up a whole lot of opportunities.
Yeah, sounds like it. I must admit, before I asked the question, I wasn't expecting it to like continue down the process, but now you say it, it could like like you say, it opens up so many possibilities of where that could go.
I've got maybe a silly question, but I don't know. I will ask that. So are agents created by language models? And what happens if the language model gets updated and there is like a new version of AI? What happens with the agent? Does it need to be like redone, or it can just pick up this new language model or new AI and it's just smarter?
Yeah, that goes a little bit to how we design agents. So typically the architecture should be set up in such a way that you can be updating the models at any given time. Right. So they're no longer that versioning of the model shouldn't be an issue. Obviously, you want to have a sandbox environment where you can test out the newer versions and confirm that the new version is actually better performant than the older version. Otherwise, you don't want to update model just for the sake of updating. So you want to actually validate that this is a better model for this particular use case. Which, every version is good for certain use cases and not always used for everything. Right. So you have that. Then you have the situation where you have multiple models, right? We all start with one, but there may be multiple models, maybe not from the same source, different sources, different like open source models versus proprietary models. You also want to have the flexibility in the architecture to look at what model does well in what use case, and also, or even at the evaluation stage, you can deploy all the models, create the same input, and then you have a model evaluating and say which model is better, and then take the best model, have those recommendations be the ones that are driving the agent. So there's a lot of ways you can architect it. So in a way that, you're more focused, like end user is very focused only on like what use case and the best way to resolve for the agent, and should be not worrying about the versions of the models, what model, and all. That all should be at the infrastructure platform level.
Interesting.
Very good. What is there anything perhaps on agents that we haven't covered that you think that maybe people should be aware of?
Yeah, the one difference agents provides, which I'm excited about, which I think is great for the construction industry, is the fact that they are modular. They can do one thing, right? So traditionally, the models and construction or AI systems and construction have always been like this kind of like a black box. You have inputs, you have outputs, and there was very little visibility on what went on in between, how the model was making the decisions, what was going into the recommendations. And as well as I do in construction, if folks don't understand, they don't trust. So with agents, given that it's a you can make it as simple as possible. You automate one task, right? You can see, okay, this agent is just checking your drawings and your specifications. And then the versions, like checking versions to versions. And then just, that's all that does. And then you have another agent that says, okay, then what do you do when you find discrepancy? So you can have them as granular and modular. So you can look at exactly what it's doing, and any person can double check and verify that it's doing it the right thing. And then you string them together, right? So that brings a level of transparency in the person in the middle that can build a lot of trust with users who are looking to adopt these systems. And then they can extend the functionality, and they can take on as many as they want to, or where they feel the pain is for them and where they want to keep control of, versus it's all or nothing.
Would you agree that agents will be primarily used by like office workers rather than folks on the construction site, or maybe I'm missing something?
They can be used by folks on a construction site. I actually was talking to a customer last year, and they had built, they were way ahead of this agent wave. So they already built about 25 agents within their company. And they had a very interesting way of deploying these agents. For a field worker on the construction site, like for example, you can just upload an image or photo of something, and the different agents work to analyze what information is there and what are the next steps that need to be done. Versus an office worker, they wanted the office workers to know what happens, and they want to actually go in and invoke the agents and have the agents work on them. The rationale they were telling me was because office worker, they don't want them to lose their expertise. They want to know what has to happen and not have agents automatically do it, versus someone on the field. They don't have the time to figure out what they want. They just want it done. And I think they were okay with saying for the field workers, we'll have the agents work and autonomously without that person's input. Obviously, at any step, you still want someone to review the output and then confirm the next steps till you get confirmation and confidence that this is the right way to do things.
How long do you think it will be before these are like not everyone, but like people are using these agents like day to day and on a regular basis?
I mean, we're still pretty early in the agent development. So like a lot of companies, including us, we're all trying to figure out what agents, what are the most egregious problems we want to solve. So it's going to be, I mean, the agent development itself doesn't take that long, but it's the adoption and getting the right interface to how folks want to use it, I think will take a little bit of time. Having said that, I think AI adoption overall, especially with LLMs and agents, will be faster than the SaaS platform adoption. And this is something I actually heard from a customer who said it's not easier because it's more intuitive. So that's another challenge is if we don't design these agents and systems in an intuitive manner, that it doesn't take much to understand how these work, then we won't succeed. Then there's the concept of, the users itself. How open are they? How painful are the existing processes that they feel like, hey, I could use this. And how well does it address that problem in the real world situation? So there's a lot of variables, but I mean, I don't have a looking glass, but if I were to say, I would be surprised if in 2 years, if folks are not using at least a few agents.
Very nice. So like agents and LLMs are great, great stuff to be talking about and using, but construction is notoriously bad with how the data is so fragmented, and the infrastructure behind that is like we hear theories that we're not ready for AI, but the data is such a mess that the AI is perhaps not as effective as it could be. Blah 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 blah. What's your views on that, and what can be done and is being done about data infrastructure within the industry?
Yeah, that is a very it's a real problem and a valid problem to be thinking about. So AI is great, and most LLMs are built on all of the knowledge in the universe, right? On the internet that's available to the models. But if you're looking for a very specific vertical of construction and you're looking for those efficiencies you can gain and advantages of taking how your company does things and turning that into AI, you need to make sure that your company process is documented well, the data is right. And I usually go through, when I'm talking to customers, I go through this data maturity curve. You start, when you're in paper and pencil analog, you have no data. Obviously, it's paper and pencil. You can access it when you need to, unless you're the one who wrote it down and you know exactly where it is. Then you have the next stage when you're just starting to use a system, you're putting data in the system. The person who's putting the data in understands what the data is, but very rarely do anybody else, right? Because they're using their own rubric, their own definitions, their own ways of putting in the information. They can run reports on it, but if a different project member or project team wants to run it, they may or may not be able to make much sense of it. Then you get to the next stage where companies try to standardize how they're doing. Not everything, because sometimes each project is different based on project type and scenarios, but you should be able to standardize a good 80% of how you do things, especially by project type, right? So if you can come up with standardized processes and then you can get to standard data, then you're able to build internal systems and have better analytics where across the board, you're able to make sense of how your business is run, how your business outcomes are being impacted, what KPIs are doing well, not doing well, what are your leading indicators, what are your lagging indicators, like how can you see when something is going off track way before, which is like you have leading indicators that says, hey, if this happens, for sure, down the road, something else is going to happen. And you want to kind of address those leading indicators, right? So you don't know that your budgets are going to go off track right away. But if you start seeing your general conditions budgets, like getting used way in the beginning, and then there's not enough to go all the way to the end of the project, then a lot more changes happen later in the projects than they happened before. So those are what I call leading indicators that you can look at. So to get to that level of intelligence, because that's really intelligence at that point. It's no longer just data. You have a usable data that gives you a lot of intelligence. If you're able to use that intelligence with very little manual manipulation by people, that is also the right kind of data that you can start to build algorithms. So that's really the journey that you have to go through. And when you can start building algorithms, then that's where AI comes. If you don't have the right data, then you'll hear people saying, I don't trust the algorithm, I don't trust the data, I don't trust AI, right? I mean, algorithms are algorithms. AI is not discriminatory. It doesn't say, well, I'll do great in one industry, but then I do terrible in another industry, right? They're just algorithms, and it all depends on how we're using it and what's the underlying data that's powering those algorithms. And I think that's important. And I see a lot of construction companies, large and small, actually putting a lot of effort. I think they're understanding it now. They want to do the AI. So AI is the carrot, that the benefit of getting out of this data strategy. So they're building these, they're spending a lot of effort and trying to understand their data, their processes. And most companies are also trying to have like an excellence team. They take a lot of experienced, project managers, superintendents, and then they are in between their tech and their actual field folks and operations folks. So they can start to put these standard operating procedures together to get the best, right? Because they have credibility with the folks on the field, in the project teams, because they've done it. They have the experience to know what do we want to make a system? How do we accelerate some of these initiatives and where you can use those efficiencies?
Do you see that technology facilitating the growth of agents is like way faster than perhaps technology facilitating the data capture for then the agents to use it? Or am I incorrect saying that?
The same technology that actually helps agents also can help with the data capture, right? So what LLMs are really good at is working with the written word, spoken word. If you think about the data in construction, about 90% of the data in construction is unstructured. You have documents, you have drawings, you have photos, you have videos, and all of the messaging, the transcripts from your meetings, your emails, like all of that prior to LLMs, you had to convert them. You have to use natural language processing and entity recognition to kind of create those entities. And so obviously you couldn't do with everything. You just did with the most important things that you needed. But now with LLMs can understand all this unstructured data, and then you can use those to create, not just power the actions, but also create the data required. And the other advantage of agents when they're doing the work is they can also document everything, like document why the decisions were done as a part of getting the job done. So you end up, if you look at the end of the day, you end up with much better data and much better decisioning, reasoning of why things were done that can then power your future, right? And any company, that's what they want to do. They want to look at past projects, understand what went well, what didn't go well, and why. When you don't have proper documentation and proper data capture, sometimes the why is constrained to certain people's brains and the information is there. And then at any given time, you can only look at 5, 10 different variables. Whereas if you can put them in a data system and you're capturing everything, algorithms can then look at that and look at these hundreds, if not thousands of variables and say, what are all correlated, right? Obviously, just because they're correlated doesn't mean that's what they're causing, but at least you understand what's correlating to certain outcomes and you can dig deep. That's why people come in to dig deeper and understand and do tests to see in the cases that all of these happen, what other issues happened. And then they can chase down that information. But getting that information is the first.
Could it be, maybe you mentioned this, or maybe I just misunderstood your point, but could it be that because the capture and infrastructure is so bad that there's actually an agent that kind of does like a full circle that helps with the data infrastructure and capture, and then, basically almost skips a step but doesn't.
Creating things, right? The agent point, daily logs. Everyone wants to create daily logs to capture what's happening on the job site for that day. Your general contractors do it, your specialty contractors do it, everybody does it. And they are like certain levels of details and accuracy based on who's doing it and how they're incentivized to do it. But if you can just take a photo and then upload it, and LLM can look at that photo, understand what's happening, and spit out all the different data points that need to be created. Like create a daily log, but also create an observation, create an inspection, create a safety hazard, all of the things based on the photos. And if that can happen, then all the person who's doing is just as they're doing the job, documenting things. And then behind the scenes, the system is taking care of actually parsing that and putting it in the right bucket of information and making sure that the next steps are being followed. Obviously, you want a person to validate that it's the right thing. But it's so much easier than having to create.
Yeah.
And it's human tendency. When you see something wrong, you want to fix it. Versus if you're asked, you're like, I just put it in just to get through the screen so I can go on with my job. Versus if I'm actually showing something wrong, like I will go correct it, right? You just get a better accuracy base because you're having both the system and the person, or AI and the person, work together. to get to better accuracy and better documentation.
Yeah,
I like what you
interesting.
say, because I think there is an issue with the trust in specifically, maybe not just construction, but I hear it from construction folks about the trust of some of the responses that they get from the AI tools and hallucinations and whatnot, etc. But I've noticed a few times that you've mentioned that human to check output.
Right. And that's important. It's very, very important. Because like I said, if something is just autonomous, there's things could go wrong. And if it doesn't go wrong, as humans, I think we have problem trusting it. It's like, whoa. It's like sometimes I equate to like skiing. Like if you're doing really well, if you're like a learner and you're going really smooth, you're like, something is going off. And then you cause the problem to happen because you're just too nervous. It's like that, right? So you want to give the person complete control of what's happening. And I think that is what really builds trust.
I'm actually super excited when you mentioned the situation with the photograph. So I can imagine a scenario where there is a photograph taken and there is an agent called architect, agent called engineer, and the agent called general contractor. And each of these agents is talking to each other and trying to solve the problem based on the incentives that they have, which are intrinsic to the nature, and they come up with a solution. That's super interesting. If we will ever get some situation like that in
We
real life.
will.
That's right. That's right. Right. You can have an agent with a different motivation, with the end goal, right? So then you can see they're different, but as long as they're working off the same data, so there is some source of truth. If that's the source of truth, single source of truth, then everything can be verified. But you're right. Depending on your persona and what your outcomes are, you tend to take it to where you want it to go.
So
It's so exciting.
are we right now like where I don't know like um how well you can answer this question and how much you know about like the reality capture and are these solutions right now kind of adjusted to, are they ready for the agents or not yet?
They are. They are. I know a lot of companies that are working with reality capture, and we are one of them. Want to take on the reality capture and parse out the images, having agents work on them to figure out next steps. They're like the reality capture. I think is one of those that has been around for a while. A lot of the bigger projects have them on, but the problem was the tech. It was so much information. It was hard to understand how to make use of it. But now you can, right? You can even have some LLMs that will just look at what's happening and then reduce all of the data into the most significant pieces. And then you can have, to your point, all of the different agents parsing all the information. One can be looking at safety hazards. One can be looking at from the sense of how much work has been completed. One of them can be looking at, does it actually follow the specifications to date? Like, or does it collide to what the BIM model says it should be? Like you can do all of that, but the underlying data is there.
That's
Okay,
super
great.
cool.
Did we touch on Procore study more?
No, I think one more section before we get to Procore. I would like to just be interested, and I suppose this comes into your day-to-day role, about just general AI and how you manage to keep up with such a rapidly and insanely fast-changing environment. Because maybe you have like a plan at the start of the year, and you say this year we're going to do this, and then it's like, oh, there's some news that just came out tomorrow, which means that the plan for the year has gone out the window. So how do you currently deal with that?
Yes, that's actually a great question. And it happens to us all the time. We are constantly reevaluating what our roadmap is. But having said that, the problems we're trying to solve are not changing. So if you remember, I talked earlier about like product means we are constantly looking at what problems do we want to solve. And those problems don't change. It's how you want to tackle those problems, how you sequence the problems. For example, the reality capture, right? For the longest time, every company with reality capture wanted to solve for progress track because that's something that's so fundamental to construction. Your payments depend on it, your schedules depend on it, your budgets depend on it, and folks from both own, like all from owners to and general contractor to subcontractors, everybody does their own tracking of progress. So when I started, when we were looking at what are the problems we want to solve, that was number one. And so we said, oh, it will take us, and we had a plan. We'll go start to organize everything. We'll try to extract all the events happening. Then we'll tag them with where they're relevant, what's happening, and then we'll get to progress tracking through the time series, right? That plan, and then that at the time, it was like, oh, it'll take us like 5 years to get there. We still want to do progress tracking, but once the LLM came on board, like some of the times have, compressed a little bit. Like what you can do is much faster, or it actually, rather than waiting for that end result of progress tracking, there's a lot of intermediate automations that you can do that will make things efficient. All of the agent stuff we just talked about, right? If you initially, when you talked about AI, like trying to streamline those wasn't worth it because this big AI system takes like 5 years to build, and a lot of capital goes into it. It's not worth it to do one thing. Our customers wouldn't be willing to pay for one thing. But now that the agents are on board, you can kind of sequence them differently. You can look at how do you release additional functionality, like before you release the entire package. So all of those change. So then we have to constantly say, okay, how do we pivot to do that, right? Same thing when the co-pilot or the information retrieval. When we were looking at information retrieval, we were thinking more of data. How do you make data available? Systems, analytics. That's great. But then, hey, LLMs actually turbocharge search. Like ask questions in plain English and you can get all the answers you want. So it makes it a person. So you kind of almost take the building blocks and you shuffle them around constantly. And what you can release to the customer changes, but your overall problems are still the same. So if you're anchored in the problem statement, I think it gives you a little bit more stability, but at the same time, and your North Star is still the same, but then you can justify why you're making these changes midstream. So yeah, to your point, we have to recast almost every quarter. We have to redo our roadmap. But our overall vision really doesn't change. How we talk about it changes because now you have newer capabilities that allow you to do things that weren't possible before. But your vision itself, not much changes there.
That's a super cool answer. Don't worry about the quarterly roadmap updates because I'm sure that there's an AI for that.
Yes, yeah, that's why we should start building our own agents internal that can do the work. Help us do the work and keep up with all of the changes.
What would you say? We speak to a lot of companies within the construction tech scene that are building AI solutions. What's your advice to them about staying defensible? Like what stops them, or even someone like Procore, hey, building their own AI solution to do what this small point solution is currently doing with AI?
I go back to solving the right problems, right? If you have the right problems you want to solve, AI is just, or traditional software development is a way that you're solving it. And then we are reckoning with that ourselves. Do we continue to respond to a user request and just do incremental changes to the product? Or do we actually change how we do it, given what AI can do? Right? Do we still need observations? Do we still need inspections? Do we still need daily logs? Or do we just say, upload your pictures, and then we'll kick off the processes for each of these? I don't know, right? Then that's kind of the conversations we're having internally. As long as we can capture all the information, do you still need the traditional methods and traditional terminology? That's the same problem everybody has, all the way from your new startups. If they're going on a path and there's disruptive technology that can change, you would hope that the startups are agile enough since that they can switch and go on the new path. But as long as the problem, very few problems actually just go away with the new technology. Like the problems are still there. It's like how you solve them that change. And every company, however big or small, I think should be constantly asking themselves, is this the best we can do? Is this the best thing for our customers to solve the problems? Even if it means short term, you have to retool your business model. But if you don't meet that long term, make that as easy as possible, someone else is going to do it, right? It's the what is this inventor's dilemma? Either you disrupt the industry, or someone else will do it for you.
Um, I'm just curious regarding the models. So, for example, in your case, do you use like a one particular, and it again might be a silly question, I'm not an expert in it, but are you using like one model, for example, from OpenAI or Gemini or Perplexity or whatever, or
DeepSeek.
or DeepSeek, or you can mix and match these models so they can work together on the answers and on the outcomes?
Yeah, we started with just one model, mostly because we have the relationships with the Azure and Microsoft environment. So we started with OpenAI, but we architected in such a way that it's just as easy to switch out the models, or for that matter, even the environment, because I strongly believe that we're going to get to a place where different models are better for different use cases. Like some may be better with text, some may be better with images, some may be better with videos. There's really no reason to lock ourselves into one method. And then there's the added layer of you can build the model with one you can build the solution with one model. You can have another model evaluating. You can have multiple models in the solution, and you can have evaluators. You can have, decision trees which can say, hey, this scenario, go here. Or even at a behest, maybe a customer wants to use only certain models. And then we can say, for this customer, use these models, go through these models and this environment so they can get what they want. So I think the stage we want to get is complete flexibility. And
Is
in
there like
addition, new models come, you want to be able to stay competitive and take advantage of the capabilities.
Absolutely.
is there any like a technical adversity against having all of these models working on the answer or on a problem, and then having an agent on top that will determine like what's the net truth that should come out
That's a
as
lot
an
of
answer?
compute, my friend.
That's right. That's right. I think the downside to that is it's expensive.
Yeah.
So we want to use it on really important problems. Not everything does not need five different AI models running it and have an evaluation and having an agent. That gets very expensive very fast. So you want to kind of do that cost benefit before you do it. And I think everybody does that, right? The compute cost, the cost of model, all of it.
Plus, I'm sure there would end up being some political disputes because I myself have certainly seen some videos of certain prompts asked on DeepSeek that it just won't answer because of political reasons. Shall we go to Procore's AI strategy then? So, how many people in the team are working on AI within Procore?
We've got 150 people. And this is both between data and AI.
That's a lot.
Mostly engineers, product and design, but the majority of it is engineers. We are working on both creating the data, organizing the data and insights along with AI. So if you see, our umbrella for Procore AI has three different pillars. One is Copilot. That's purely the conversational layer. We're starting with in search. We are going to have it in site panel. And then also in conversations, again, mimicking that person. So you're asking a person for a question, you're asking AI for a question. It should be seamless, right? Whichever gets you the answer right. And we also want that to be the portal to the rest of the AI. And the reason is asking questions and getting answers is great, but you don't really unlock the potential fully till we can proactively surface what needs to be surfaced. If you're only responding to answers, then it's only the people who are asking the right answers. And I'm sure you know, based on how you ask answers, you can get very different results. And so you want to kind of take a little bit of that user competence and user expertise out of there. There are always going to be like the super users who know everything and can get answers. But if you can kind of make that a system, then you're leveling the competency of the entire team. Then the second pillar we're working on is all the automations and agents that we have working within Procore, and that we've been working for years now. It's not what we started right now. Copilot only came into existence with the LLMs, but the automation piece has been happening using computer vision, machine learning, and all of those. Then the last one we also have is insights, which is purely machine learning, like looking at your data. What did you do as a company? What are the industries doing as a whole? Given that we have all of this information about construction for the last 20 years, there's a lot of knowledge that we can use to create those benchmarks and guide users. So those are the three discrete pillars that we're looking at. But then we have, like I said, the data platform systems, data models that power all of these that are underlying. But we want to have Copilot really be the portal to ask those and get the information. For example, you have the general conditions budget I mentioned earlier. You see earlier in the stage, the general conditions budget is much higher than other projects, historical projects within that company of that same type, right? So you're building a hospital, your hospitals should be trending at like maybe 10% of the stage. Now it's trending at 15% or even 12%, right? That's cause for concern. So you should be looking and say, why is this going so high? And then you also, in addition, it's helpful to also have your industry benchmarks. As an industry for this hospitals, what should be the trend at that point? And then you use those two variables to dig deeper to see, is this an anomaly or is it something justifiable for this project? But getting that information to the right people at the right time, not waiting for them to come look at the insight, but actually prompting them when you see that trend go off a little bit, I think it's very useful. So that's how we're looking holistically at AI. Like no matter what we're building, we want all of those to be serviced up as the teams need, as the companies need, with their own flavors.
So this information on where the trend is going, does the customer get it based on the data that they have in Procore, or that's across the board of all companies, and it's like his performance their performance is benchmark against the whole industry?
The primary driver here is the customer's data, right? You can say, hey, industry is doing this, but you don't know all the nuances that go into the industry. You really know your company, your processes. So I think that's where you have the most information. So of course, your data is not right. For whatever reason, if you say, hey, my data is not right, or my historical data is not right, that gives you an incentive to say, let me go see what I can do to fix all of that information. An industry benchmark is good, especially if you're doing externally and you're trying to defend your stats, but not as good when you're trying to manage your projects internally. So, which is why, I'm saying data is important, especially if you want to take advantage of, or you want insights based on what's happening in your project at this any given time.
Very good. Is there anything? It's quite an open question, and maybe you'll have to dig deep for the answer. Let's see. But is there anything that you have, at your time in AI, just generally, or maybe at Procore as well, that you have seen AI do, and you have been like, oh my God, this is mind-blowingly good, and maybe even a little bit scary?
Scary.
Like, I don't know, like I think in a very dystopian future, the AI is controlling humanity. That kind of like extreme example, perhaps.
Yeah, I didn't I am very much an optimist, and I think AI is a technology that can be used for good, a lot of good. Obviously, it's in the hands of the user. Things can go off track, but what I really think, like good usage. So let me address the good usage. Is it can help increase productivity of construction, and it can improve the onboarding of new folks into construction. It improves how effective decisions can be taken given the right information without having to rely on someone who's done this for 30 years. So some of the cool things, and I've heard this, and this is again from a customer story, is they're trying to hire a lot of experienced folks who no longer want to be on the field, so they can be the ones who can help advise newer folks on the field. So they get the data in real time, they see the data that they're collecting, and they can advise the folks on the field on the right actions to take. And if you fast forward with that, you can also help them build the systems of how, you want to optimize processes within the organization. And then that AI system can then train folks as they're learning and onboarding. So that's, to me, a very cool use case. And I think that's where we'll see, right? Like, then there's a lot of uproar around people retiring and not enough experience, folks staying in, and a lot of new folks coming in and expecting a certain level of technology adoption. And I think this gets at all of those problems. And you're not putting anybody out of jobs. You're not, saying you can't do this anymore. It's almost you're up leveling and upskilling the people you already have and making them more productive, right? Given the shortage, I think that's a welcome change. And honestly, I feel like that's probably what's motivating a lot of the construction companies to think about AI and think about what benefits it can bring, right? I know earlier on, when I first started Procore, I would hear people like, we don't want to put people into their jobs. And I was like, that is so not the case for AI. It's another technology. You can always have fear and say, oh, this could go badly wrong and it will take over everything. Like the folks talked about autonomous driving like that about 5 years ago. It's still not to the place where it's driving itself. I mean, there are a few companies that are doing like, autonomous taxis, but most of the benefits we've seen are coming from how are they controlling you, alerting you when things are going on. Like I have a car, I drive. The minute someone comes close to me, tells me I'm getting too close. Like it helps me, gives me so much help in like parking in a spot. Tells me like where I am, like who's behind me when I can't see them. Like those are all benefits of autonomous driving, right? Even if you don't believe in autonomous driving, these are all welcome advancements. Cameras all around. Like 20 years ago, our cars didn't have cameras all around, but now I can just, do a switch and then I can see where I am and what my surroundings are. Like that's how I like to look at AI. And I feel like, yes, we want to aim for those autonomous systems and autonomous and general AI, but along the way, we can get a lot of automations that'll help improve our lives. And yes, there may be certain things like with robotics that you no longer have to do. Maybe you no longer have to go deep into the oil rigs and do all of that stuff because robots can do it. You don't have to go up telephone poles to fix the things. But those are dangerous jobs. And, we can philosophically argue, do we even need people to do them? Are they better off sitting in the office, controlling the robots and creating the data around for the robots to work on?
Yeah, I agree.
Nice.
Rajitha, what products, when you speak with customers, like what kind of products do they signal are needed within our space, within construction tech?
I think more than the products, because they know what problems they're facing. And they are very articulate in the problems. So they can tell us problems. I mean, they can tell us solutions too. But that may or may not be feasible. I think we have to look at a technology lens to figure out like really how do we want to solve that particular problem. But it's more the question of like what problems do they have that's soaking up their time, that's really stopping them from being more proactive. That's what I hear all the time. We want to be proactive. We want to get we want to focus on building. We want to be on time at or under budget, if preferably, and deliver quality projects. Right? Like that's the problems. That's the statement that they want to do. And then you dig deeper into, okay, what is stopping you from doing that? And then there's all of these problems coming from all the changes that happen all through the day, all through the project life cycle. A lot of iterations, folks not getting the right changes at the right time. They're not, in ahead of time, so they can actually make changes that has to go back and be corrected once it's already built. So I think though the proactiveness and how do you disseminate the information to all of the project teams and members at the right time in a way that are actionable, I think is what I hear of.
Very good. Martin, any more questions for you?
Yeah, maybe the last one closing. So someone I respect a lot said, if you want to build great products, don't listen to your customers. What can you say about that?
I would update that a little bit and say, yes, don't listen to your customers, maybe the solutions, but pay attention to the problems and pay attention to how they're doing it and what is stopping them from changing what they're doing, right? You want to tackle those barriers. So you can say, oh, I don't listen to my customer. Yes, there is the thing is like, hey, if you ask someone who's driving a horse, like what would say, they would say they want a faster horse. They will never say you want a car because they cannot envision, but they want speed and they want to be reliable. They don't want to be, have to maintain the horse, right? Like those are the problem statements. If you get to the problem statements and get to what you can improve, I think you can get to those revolutionary ideas. And I think in a way, AI is that. Like my job, I see is hard. Not only it's because it's convincing folks on oh, it's not something that's going to come after your jobs and it's not going to go after people. It's not going to trick you into doing things you don't want to do, but also try a new way of doing. And here's why this would work, right? That's the business that I am in. We're trying to fundamentally change their thinking about a problem. And I think that's it. You do it one mind at a time. And as you can get it to tie back to the problem statements and the efficiencies and how it can help them and how help with even the cultural barriers, if you can go after them and kind of tackle them, I think that's where you can get to success.
Very good.
Right.
We always ask people this question at the end, and it is, where can people find out more about you, Rajitha? But also, could you tell people perhaps your favorite resources for staying on top of AI?
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media I do.
Good.
Sources for finding out AI. I pretty much like read everything and anything. I mean, I follow Medium, I follow the mainstream publications, like Economist, right? And I do like tech reviews. But also, everyone I follow on LinkedIn, folks, the folks that I respect. So I consume information in all ways that I get. And the more controversial, the better, right? You want to get all facets of it, all the way from folks who say AI is going to take over the world and like get us to ruination to folks who say this is the best thing ever. I need all of it because the reality is somewhere in between. So I don't follow one person. So that's what my advice would be. Don't follow one person. Read wide breadth of sources and then make up your own mind, because a well-informed user and a customer is the best person to make the decisions.
Very lovely. Great way. Thank you, Rajitha.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.